Not the wind, not the foe, not the silence, not the war, not the night they couldn't see. I'm the best me rising free. I'm not what happened to me. I'm what I choose to be. Each step I take, I shift, I ride. The past is all before my eyes. I'm not what happened to me. Choose to be. Step I take, I shift, I ride. Before my eyes. Not the moment, not the mark. I am more than what went dark. I hold the sun behind my skin. I plant the truth and grow within. Now what happened to me? I'm what each breath I take, I shift, I rise. The story is a soul. Now what happened to me?
Yeah. What a beautiful song to start our little gathering of my beautiful rebel mas all around the world. Thank you for joining us for, I guess, the final countdown, the final piece of the puzzle. You know, it's our summit has been 5 full days of absolutely incredible conversations and explorations of how we embody the different archetypes and the phases of the feminine to live our most lit up and liberated lives, and to start living like matriarchs right now from where we are with what we've got, with what is around us. And I'm very excited and humbled today to bring together some of my clan, my tribe, my tua, who have been a part of the Rebel Ma Collective since the start, many, and others who have joined along the way. But we are going to jam it out today on the rite of passage of what it means to become the rebel matriarch of your own life, of your own tribe, of your own community, and to really see what it takes or explore what it takes to write your story, to become the author of your life, and to write a chapter about every experience that you have come to embody in this life, and be able to offer it up and share it in service to others, which is such a courageous thing to do. And it really is the epitome of what a matriarch would do. She wants to share her wisdom from an embodied place. She wants to look at her life and mine for the gold. She wants to share the healed path that she has found forward in order to uplift and bring people with her, so that everybody knows that that there is a way, that there is a way, and she becomes a torchbearer in that way. And we know as women who have written our stories that they are not just like stories for us, they are offerings to our ancestors, and they are kind of gifts for people, for those who have yet to come on this planet, to leave a path, to light a path. I like to think of our stories as kind of paper lanterns lighting up the dark and helping people to follow this path back to their heart. And for that, I'm so grateful that so many of you, trusted me to be the midwife for your story, to allow me to hold you with the tenderness, with the love, with the justice that your stories deserve, and to help you, midwife yourself through this transition from maiden to matriarch, or whatever it was for you. But you definitely aren't the same woman that you were when you stepped into the space at the beginning. Every single one of us who writes our story, we liberate ourselves from all the old stories, and then we really get to embody who it is that we truly are, who it truly is that we want to be. And if we don't, Rebel Ma brings us on that journey. She tells us, well, here, you can't say you're that if you're not. And she makes us embody. So that's what I love about Rebel Ma. And that's what I love about the journey of writing your book in an anthology. So I'm joined today by Shelagh Morrissey, who's a divorce coach from Ireland, and she has been in 3 of our books from the beginning, and also with Hannah Mama Sky, who's been in 2 of our books, and she is in the mountains in Spain, and she's a healer and a channel and a guide for the feminine. And we have Natalie Strecker, who is coming in from the Isle of Wight, I think, is it? Or Jersey. Jersey. Sorry, I don't know where I got that from, but she is a human rights observer. She's a huge advocate for the vulnerable, and she's a voice of the people. So I'm really, really honored to have you all here today, my girls, and I look forward to chatting to you about what it is that Rebel Ma wants to come through. So what we'll do is we might start, just really giving each woman an opportunity to step forward and share a little bit about your story, and about maybe what it was like to voice that, to write it, to publish it in a book, and to experience the alchemy that held, and to experience maybe how it strengthened your voice and gave you more direction, more purpose, and the sisterhoods that formed across oceans and time zones because we said yes to this nudge that called us forward. And yeah, I'd love to just hear from your heart and from your womb what it is that Rebel Ma means to you. And I have Shelagh here. Maybe you go first because you're right on cue and you're up on the screen.
Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It's a lovely frosty morning here in Ireland, so delighted that we have March and nice bright weather, seriously. So I'm not talking to you in the dark. But I would probably, good way to start, because the book is probably from darkness to light. And it really sums that up for me. I reflected on it since I was asked to come on this panel, or I, offered to come on this panel. And back to 2023, when I first met you, and I was a very vulnerable woman who had just come out of a divorce, a very high conflict divorce. I was a lost soul, really, but I knew there was more to me. And I knew that to get that down in the depth of all the learning I had, it was pain, obviously, but learning through that pain, that it had to be for some reason. It couldn't just sort of like stay in my body. It had to come out somewhere. And the irony was that I was introduced to you through my niece, who was also involved in the book. And I had heard about the book, say, in February of that year. And because I was going through my divorce, it was like, this isn't the right time. I have too much on. But by May, when I'd exited, there were still spaces left. And I saw the calling. And I remember ringing my niece and saying to her, would you mind if I get involved in this? Because I didn't want to tread on her toes. And she was delighted. So I went on holiday with my kids to the UK, and I spent the long weekend, writing after speaking to Saoirse, and it was just beautiful. I think in Ireland, well, all over the world, we're great at storytelling, but maybe not the written form. We're great. I would be better at telling a story maybe than writing it, or that's what I would have been told. And I'm an accountant by trade, so going into this realm was very scary for me. So I think the fear that we feel when we're faced with these challenges, yet our body is calling us to do it, that's
Mm.
sort of the real power when we power through that fear because we know there's gold at the other side, as you say. So that journey in the first book was really an initiation. I mean, I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing, but I was following the crowd. And that was the beauty
Follow
of
the
it, that
crumbs, following the breadcrumbs.
yeah, well, no, we're following all of you because it was brilliant that we were in the community because you felt you had to keep up, at whatever level we were at. If I was the tortoise and somebody else was the hare, I was having to keep up at some level. And I suppose as I've got through the system now a few times, it's progress, isn't it? And I just say that to everybody, no matter what you're doing in life, as long as you feel you're progressing, whatever the pace is, it's a great feeling in your body. When we don't make any progress, that's when we feel stuck, and that's when we can get our energy levels can go lower. So whatever level you're at, don't compare yourself to others, but it's fabulous if you're in a group like this. And Saoirse was such a great leader and such a great supporter and mentor. So that was the first story really. And I remember when it was being published, it was delayed by about a week, and it was sort of a relief when we all felt that it was delayed because we were all running under stones, hiding, wondering what do we do next? Like Saoirse was pouring out this social media stuff, and we were all running away from it rather than towards it. But I think that week it was like the birth being delayed on purpose by the universe to kind of let us say, yes, this is happening, get with it and join in the fun, really. But I suppose the fear, going back to fear, because it's a big thing that holds a lot of us back from a lot of stuff. And during my life, I suppose I never felt that fear in my job because I was qualified to do what I was doing, whereas I wasn't qualified to do this. So I was doing something outside the box. But fear can hold us back in so many ways. But what I found was that what was I afraid of? I was afraid of telling the truth. I was afraid of my family judging me. I was afraid of friends judging me. I was afraid of a lot of things that none of them came true. But the real fear now, as I reflect, was on my own truth. How deep was I going to go with it? And I remember you keep saying to me, go deeper, Sheila, go deeper, Sheila. But in that first one, it was like, I'm deep, Saoirse. This is enough for me.
Mm.
And as the journey developed, I could understand completely what you meant because I grew with it then, and I felt I could go deeper as the other books as we progressed into the book 3 and 4 or 2 and 3, and I think that's where the real fear is for us. We say it's outsiders, but the real fear is inside us. We use external stuff to make excuses, but the real fear is our own truth. How deep do we go with our truth? Because truth is pain. And if it's a lot easier to push that pain inside us away than to actually let it rise up. Because when it rises up, we can't hide from it and we can't ignore it. It's like the light switch. Once it goes on, once you see that light, you can't deny it. And it was navigating through that then. And I think writing is powerful for that. It's powerful for our thoughts because we can get such a muddle in our head and so blocked. But once we write it, as you said earlier, even about yourself, doing this project gives you clarity. And I think that's what we all seek is clarity, no matter what we're doing. Um, so that's the fear bit, really, to really work through fear because fear leads to the truth. And the truth then leads to our growth.
Mm.
And, when I was to really embody my fear, or when I got to the truth, what I learned about myself was that the very things, the resilience, the tolerance that were all part of me because of my pain and got me to look successful in my life externally were also the things that were holding me back internally because they were creating me to be more tolerant, to put up with stuff I shouldn't put up with. But they were also good parts of me. But when I got to actually write and be clear about the different aspects of myself, I could now embody all of it in a lot better way and talk about the real truth of why I was like certain ways and really see myself how I turned up in different ways. And the first experience I gave in the first chapter was when my son was ill and Sheila became the stoic mother. and she wore herself out and she became the martyr. But that was all I knew. It wasn't that I was doing that on purpose. That was the way I lived. That I was all I knew. That was the way I coped. And it was to beat it, to win, to get through it. And there was nothing about my own needs, my own feelings, how as a mother I felt so low in those. I never reached out for that help because I thought then I was looking for attention. And sure, my son was sick. Sheila didn't need attention. So that was a big learning. It was an emotional story, but it was only the start of my journey because that was just one part of my life I could pick up on to really delve into. But then that unraveled, when they say you're unraveling stuff, the word ravel, Brené Brown says, is when something is so tightly bound. So when we unravel it, it takes a lot to unravel it. And you have to start as one story. And that was a very personal story for me because I could look in at myself afterwards and look at how I navigated it. And yes, I was resilient and tolerant, but a disc went in my back. My marriage probably, well, definitely got impacted by it because I didn't ask for help. My other children got impacted by it. So it wasn't the best way to show up, basically, in that environment, in that way. And, even society back then didn't have the mental health help and all the tools that we now became aware of as we went on this. I sort of joined Rebel Maz. I was also doing healing work myself. So the two sort of dovetailed very well together to have that also sort of other modalities that I was leaning into as combined with the book. So it was a great way of kind of healing myself.
Mm.
And then book two came along, and even then I remember thinking this is like the second birth where you think you know what you're doing, and you arrive in the labor ward, and you're like, why did I do this to myself again? Get me out of here. But I met some beautiful people. I ended up in Bali. My son was in Bali at the time. There was so much synchronicity around saying yes to the second one that it was a beautiful journey, a completely different experience, but so uplifting. And I could feel myself, even as a person, rising. I could feel myself making those decisions that I probably would have held back from before. I thought I didn't deserve them or I wasn't worthy of them. Giving myself the 4 days on the retreat with yourself, Saoirse, and some of the other women who had written in the book was so powerful. So many lessons from that week.
Mm.
And the synchronicities, as I said, that my son happened to be in Bali at that time. Little did I know a year previously that all this would come together without any planning.
Mm.
And then, of course, the third book was really the one that I personally, I would say, leaned into completely. I, treated it like a proper project and did research in it. I went a lot deeper into my background, and that led to the sort of growth of my business to develop this divorce coaching business. Because I really felt a calling of that being my North Star to help women and men, because I'm really into the family unit and
Mm.
really into that sort of beautiful sort of not the normal myth of normal family, but that compassionate and love that we all have in our souls that we want to bring to our families that is blocked by a lot of our conditioning and societal norms. And I'm really trying to look for growth versus revenge. And even yesterday, I was doing a post saying, in every ending, there's a new beginning. And so when a divorce ends, there's a new beginning for the two people. Or when a marriage ends, there's a new beginning for two people. But why do we drag out the ending rather than accelerate the new beginning?
Mm.
And it's a
Mm.
lovely sort of way of looking at it. But so yeah, the journey through Rebel Ma has been phenomenal for me. I have drawn on it in so many times when I've been stuck or still in, I mean, pain doesn't go away. The healing journey never ends. It's not like we know all the answers. We're still hit with challenges all the time. But I sit here, I drink my cacao, and I just call in the Rebel Ma energy. And it's amazing. As you say, you can't deny it anymore. When you see it, it's like you've got to deal with this. You can't sort of let on, you don't know anymore. We do know, and we know what we've got to do, and we know we've got to rise up. And we know, I've seen the strength that I know from talking to other people, particularly about this lovely book. Here it is. Um, People do admire us, even though we don't do it for that reason. But if we inspire just one person to tell their truth, if we just help one person to feel normal and not to feel that, I used to call it, I'm not a knot of who I'm not. I was in a knot of what I'm not. And
Mm,
to unravel that knot in some way and to encourage people to tell the truth. And it's not telling the truth to be a victim, it's telling the truth to release and be free. And then to allow us to rise up. And that's what we need to do. I mean, you have really brought to me, seriously, so much feminine, powerful energy that we have. Even though I was a mother of four children, I hadn't embraced my femininity at all. I had done it as a job, you know? I remember the first book, even the cover, I have it here. The cover for me at that time felt so much, oh my God, this is too much. And then I
mhm,
had to have a chat with myself and try to say, like, if you think this is too much, how do we ever think men are going to come? And, we're saying men don't understand us, and we're like, they don't get it, and we're like, we're hiding it, and we're hiding it ourselves, and we're expecting other people to see it. So as well as my own healing journey, stepping into my own femininity has been powerful for me because I was very much in my masculine.
yeah, yeah, that's been such a beautiful thing to witness, for you. The first book was like stories of reclamation, and you were really just kind of owning your story and making sense of it. And you were making moves, out of the situation you'd been in. You were making the changes you needed to make. And the second book was about liberation. And this is where you really had set yourself free. And now you were stepping into who you said you wanted to be. And the third book, The Stories of Revolution, was just you like, yes, I am that person. And you are leading and you are leaning into it all. And you were just owning the shit out of yourself. And you were, really, really powerful stuff, like how you took that book and you used it as like a fan underneath your flames and underneath your wings, and just really, use it as a tool to connect with people and to remember your own magic and to share your story in a way that would empower others through from conflict to compassion, as you say, is the chapter in the last book. And now you're a divorce coach helping people through that rite of passage, which it really is. So thank you so much for sharing all that beautiful, beautiful reflections. And yeah, it's not over yet. Awesome, awesome. Thank you. And Hannah, my love, if we just take a deep breath in for Sheila and everything she shared. Sending her love, sending her gratitude. You really have been such a beautiful glue within our sisterhood too, to like always encouraging everybody else, and just really to be able to step into that woman who knows the power of your voice, who knows the weight of your words, and who knows the blame that you came to carry. And you never write from ego, it's from soul, and you're sharing these stories of revolution for the benefit of all. So thank you. Hannah Mama Sky, my darling girl, if you want to tell us your story and how it was alchemy for you and what it has helped you to step into as a rebel matriarch in your life and love and leadership.
Wow. What a journey she has been. And what's crazy is that first book, that picture on the front, I feel like I have that picture of myself pregnant. To the point someone even brought that book and thought it was me because of this picture. And they thought my story was in that book, because I'll find the picture. It is like
yeah, you had it in the second book. Then it was your picture, but it was the image of the actual cover.
And I think I think you'd reached out to me for the first book, but because I'd so recently given birth and I had Emrys, as a baby, and I was becoming a first-time mama in the mountains, it didn't drop with me till much later that I connected with you. And I knew that my birth story was so unique in that what had happened, that I had to get it out into the world. And I studied alternative midwifery at Dalaluz, and I really believe that I was led to that course, to that path, to learn how to trust in our body's innate wisdom to birth. And then I had this epic magical birth experience and I wanted to share it with the world. And I hadn't, like, I knew, I was like, I can't just share this insane birth story like on an Instagram post. I was like, this is like, this needs to get out there in such a big way. And then I connected with you and I was like, wow, my birth story is going to get out there through Rebel Ma. This is epic. I felt so, that story for me, I just felt so empowered and I just knew that it had to get out there and I just couldn't wait to write it. I'd always been a writer. I feel like that's how I express myself best, more than even the spoken word is through the written word for me. And to be able to be given that opportunity and be midwife by you, and that just the container, just I just lived for those days that we'd meet and we'd like be together and have a cacao and, you know, have those you'd give us different writing prompts and things, and we were just, I felt so safe and just in this container with the Rebel Mars, and it really ignited such a fire in me. It launched me into being an author, which is what, ever since a little girl, I had always wanted to be. And to know that I was sharing a positive, empowering birth story for women out there meant so much. But I knew there was so much more still under the surface to come, a much deeper, darker story that I knew I had to share. And for me, that was so beautiful, actually, that I got to share my birth story, Dragonfly. But then I always knew that in the next book, the third book, that I was going to go much deeper and share the death before the Dragonfly, my abuse story. Because I think for people reading Dragonfly and like, wow, you know, this woman, she's had this amazing powered birth story. She lives in the mountains with her baby and a dragonfly landed on her vagina. Like, wow, like what a story. But like, actually the reality of that is I had, you know, I had actually previously through my life been in not just one, but two highly abusive relationships. I had had my ribs broken, my eardrum ruptured. I'd been with really crazy, narcissistic, abusive men. And I'd gone through so much to actually get to that place where I was able to have my beautiful, empowered birth story. But actually, that women need to know the whole journey so they too realize that they can alchemize that pain into their purpose and like their trauma into tenderness and their wounds into wisdom. And I felt like a responsibility to share the truth of my journey, and that how, especially with violence and domestic violence cases, like by keeping silence, it almost, it multiplies the violence. It keeps it alive, I think. And the more we share, the more women that step forward and share their abuse stories, I believe that it gives, you know, other women the permission to do the same. And I think I wrote, because I even wrote, I was coming on and I was like, right, our stories leave and weave a legacy of truth and authenticity. And they show that our children and children's children, and they show that our daughters, that when we do get burnt in the world, that it's not the end, that it's not over, that it's actually, that it's just the beginning. And that when we choose to rise, and we choose to rise with grace, others gravitate towards us. And it allows them to then share their stories and doesn't keep them anymore in the shame and the pain. It, like Sheila was saying, it releases us, it frees us, and it gives us a power. And it unlocks, for me, it unlocked my voice. Like my singing voice really came into its own after the release of both Rebel Mars, and especially in the sharing of my abuse story. Like something even bigger unlocked in me in ceremony, that I realized that I was actually singing with a freedom that I never had before. And I'm so grateful for that, and for the journey, and for Rebel Ma and the energy of her. And yeah, I feel like it's catapulted me into this, yeah, powerful leader and author, and allowed, you know, the women that came to my retreats to Waking the Witches, there would always be you know, shockingly, but I was thinking about it this morning, like the majority, even over 50% of the women that would come on Waking the Witches had experienced some kind of like child sexual abuse. I couldn't believe every container. And then now even more, like the women that have experienced domestic violence are able to find me and come to Waking the Witches because of my chapter, and the amount of women that have reached out to me and thanked me for sharing my story. Like I didn't expect so much response from the women thanking me, but also then gravitating towards the offerings because I have experienced it. I've lived it. I've walked through the flames, as you say, and now we're in this rising from the ashes. And yeah, it just feels a really powerful place to be. And even the other day, I went out for the first time, and a woman here in the Spanish mountains, she came up to me at an event and was like, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your abuse story. And shared that, you know, she had been through something similar, but she was just like, that was really brave and thank you. And I was just like, wow, like she's found me here in the mountains. I was like, you know, it reaches people. Yeah, it's reaching a lot of people and having a huge impact. And I just think, wow, like, especially now, like now more than ever, I feel like this is so important. Rebel Ma, it's so important in the matriarch, because it's the patriarchy that's kept us in the shame and in the silence and in the fear of not sharing our stories. And, you know, through this matriarchal leadership, the sharing of our stories and the freeing the women and just giving them more power to stand up and say, no, like we're here now.
Yeah, baby. Yes, I love that. And that's it, you know, we write because silence is no longer an option. You know, we write because we are fucking done with waiting for permission. We're done with dimming down. We're done with carrying shame that was never ours to hold. We're done with the dogma, with the lies and the doctrine we've been sold. And we're like, no, this is a line in the sand moment. I'm not fucking standing for this anymore. And that's what I love about, you know, the journey and the courage for each woman to step into her story and to own it and to share it, because it's not easy, you know, to actually bare your soul in that way, to be like in such naked vulnerability and to let people see your true authentic self. But that's, you know, as you say, so many people have been drawn to you because you write so authentically, because you write from the heart and the depths of your soul, and you're not afraid to go into the darkness and to alchemize that into gold. You know, it's like you're transforming your wounds into wisdom for others to find you, and because they resonate with you, because it's happened to so many more people than anyone would care to say. And just to know that, you know, we've all read a book where we're like, oh my God, that woman is putting like my wounds into words, and like she has the medicine and the lifeline that I've been waiting a lifetime for. And that's the magic of sharing a story like this. We don't know where they're going to go, you know, we don't know where they're going to fly to. It's like opening a cage and wild birds fly away and can land in houses and homes and millions of miles away. And there is where you unlock something in somebody to let them know they're not alone, that they have fucking are seen, and that, you know, their story matters. So it's beautiful to be that mirror for others. And thank you for your courage. Beautiful, Ellen. We'll just send Hannah a big hug and lots of love from our hearts and wombs to hers. And we'll bring the lovely Natalie on, who also wrote a gorgeous story in the Rebel Ma Leading in the Time of the Feminine, Women's Stories of Revolution, which was a beautiful kind of manifesto to the women, to really encourage us all to shine our light in these dark times, and to believe in ourselves and to believe in what matters, and to be a stand for what matters in the world. And you are such a beautiful advocate. for our beautiful brothers and sisters in Palestine. And I'd love to hand the mic over to you and tell us, a little bit about the story that you shared, and also the story that was happening in the background, and how much courage you had to share your story at that time when they were trying to silence you so hugely, and yet you stood with such courage in the face of all of this, and you won. You won, babe. You won.
Yeah, thank you so much, Saoirse, and thank you, Sheila and Hannah. I feel so humbled listening to your stories, and there is so much power and just light in them. I know that they might be heavy stories, but the light that comes from them. So yeah. And yeah, Saoirse, you connected with me at a time when I really needed it. And I don't think I realized how much I needed it, because at the time I was a little bit confused. But it just couldn't have come really at a better time, because as I was facing my own witch trial. So it was interesting when I was reading the sort of outline for today, and I was thinking, there's a lot about witches and finding your power and ritual and stuff like this, and I was like, I was facing my own witch trial for speaking the truth, for citing international law, because obviously when we connected, I was awaiting prosecution for the crime of advocating for the Palestinian people, and literally for citing international law. That's what I was prosecuted for. I can say right at the beginning, before I go more into that I won. I was acquitted. But crazy that we are being put in these situations. And when I was writing my story, it really allowed me the opportunity to reflect on where we're at, and how it kind of echoes what happened in the past, and our sisters in the past, and what they had to face, and the crime of telling the truth, the crime of speaking up, the crime of standing up, and all that means, and the learning to, I think that the process of writing, I've heard a lot of you guys speak this morning about clarity, and it really gave me clarity. It helped me to process what was happening, why it was happening, where we're at, what we need to be. That because mine was obviously Sister Fly, a time of metamorphosis, and I could really feel that process that I was beginning to go through and continue to be going through. And I think it's the process that we see in this world, the breaking down of the systems, the breaking down of illusion, and that's a really painful thing, right? And I've sort of been speaking a lot to friends locally about this, that you feel like, like I felt before, I kind of had a pretty good grasp of what was happening in the world, and that our institutions weren't working, that the patriarchy was damaging us in so many different ways, and damaging life itself, but I think that this period, when those final illusions that we held on to, that there was such a thing as international law, that there was such a thing as some morality in some of the systems, at least, and to have that dissolve, well, that's what happens when the caterpillar is transforming into the butterfly. And I've really held that sort of image and that story in my mind, and that process in my mind, how for the butterfly to come, the caterpillar has to completely dissolve. That is the process. And I remember watching, I think it was like a documentary, and it was talking about how when that process is happening, the caterpillar cells try to fight the butterfly cells, because it doesn't want to change, right? And then but it's the butterfly cells replicate so quickly that it overwhelms the caterpillar cells, and then it goes into the mush, and then it turns into the butterfly. But that is a painful process, and I think that is the journey that I've been going on. And I think that you gave me the space to kind of explore and reflect and make sense of, what is that journey, and I sort of talked about, and you'll know, I mean, I'm not a mother in as much as I haven't given birth to a child on this in this lifetime. But what I do understand, and you'll know better than me, is that birthing is a messy process, right? It takes a lot of trust. And Hannah, you were talking about having that sort of trust in yourself during that, and it can be a dangerous process. It's a messy process, but the beauty that it can bring, when we allow ourselves to go through that journey of conceiving, nurturing ourselves or our little one during that period, and then bringing it into the world. And I feel like the writing began to help me to do that, but more so it helped me think about the world that we're trying to birth now. And we are in this very sort of dangerous, messy period. But we have no choice but to step up as matriarchs, to lead, to imagine what could be and can be, and then begin to take the steps to it. And it is always about owning the truth. And that Rosa Luxemburg says that the most revolutionary thing we can do is to proclaim the truth. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important that we do that. Obviously Palestine is the issue of my heart. It's not the only thing. I've always been interested in human and social rights and looking after our planet, that ever since I was a really young child. But Palestine became the issue of my heart because I served there as a human rights monitor in 2018. I first visited in 2016. And the reason why I took up Palestine and focused on that was because so many people refused to do so, because they were fearful, because of the indoctrination, because the Palestinians are the most dehumanized people on our planet. And when people wouldn't take it up and I began to learn about it, and it was simply an accident, really, where I worked, one of my colleagues, she's passed away now, but her husband was Palestinian. I could hear this conversation about her mother-in-law being stuck at checkpoints. I'm thinking, why are there checkpoints? And I started, and that was my journey into Palestine. But when people wouldn't take that story up, or wouldn't share their story and look at what was happening and put the spotlight on it, is why I chose to do it. But when I served there in 2018, I was based in Hebron and Al Khalil, and seeing the level of violence and the dehumanization, I was like, it just changed me completely. But so that's really why I focused on Palestine. And obviously things have just got so much worse. We've watched a genocide happen for over 2.5 years now, really. But during this journey into really campaigning and sort of really frontline activism, which I've been doing since 2014, at first I was really just doing it from the activist side. And I think that what happened, and this is again what Rebel Ma has really given me, like in 2020, I started having, as a result, I was so depressed in 2019, I started having this spiritual awakening, which just goes to show again how the birthing comes from difficulty. I think you were referring to that, Shelagh, how it's often in the darkness we begin to find ourselves, and there's that breaking opening, and you hear that from a spiritual perspective, right? That it's in the breaking that the light begins to come through. It's in the cracks the light can get through. So I remember being so depressed at the end of 2019. In the beginning of 2020, I started just doing some meditation every day. It was just 3 minutes of mindful breathing, and that was it, because I thought I need to be able to pull myself out of this. And it wasn't even with a spiritual view. It was just, I have to do this. And then all these different things happened. Anyway, I then started going to some meditation sessions that people were holding, and I ended up doing ayahuasca, and I was told about the importance of integrating the light and the shadow self, that we have to look at it and integrate it. So there was all these different sort of steps. And then obviously in 2023, the genocide happened. And actually on the 7th of October, I had actually been in ceremony, in psilocybin ceremony. So I turned on my phone on the 8th of October and was suddenly flooded with all these messages. And I kind of felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. So then then in 2024, I started a journey with a medicine, Bonnie McAteer, who's incredible over here, a medicine woman movement, which was about somatic movement. Well, it's not just about somatic movement, but it's about moving through emotion. So I started building up, and then I got arrested. And then for stating the truth, I've been organizing protests and all the rest of it, doing my normal campaigning, but stepping it up. And I gone through disciplinary at work because the Zionist lobby relentlessly attacked me, which I had been doing for 10 years, but stepped it up after October 23. Anyway, so waffling a lot there, but there was such a journey of going through all these different things. And then the whole arrest sort of triggered some old wounds to me, around safety and not feeling safe and not being able to use my voice. There was a lot around that, around the danger of speaking up when I was a child, the danger of just so many things. And so I was kind of spinning. So when you reached out to me, Shasha, took a long way to get there. When you reached out to me, you actually gave me a vehicle to sit down, and it made me, because I thought, well, I've committed to this now, I've just got to get on and do it. But it actually really allowed me, and I'm much better at writing than I am at speaking, because I think it gives me the time to really think about how I want to express myself. And I think just you enabled me and gave me a vehicle to do that. And when I was able to do it, that's when the empowerment came in, because it helped me to reflect on all of those other spiritual things that had happened. It also helped me reflect on the fact that the psilocybin had told me that the only way we can change the world is to live with open hearts, the willingness to feel it all, the willingness to go into the darkness, but recognize the light that exists within it. So I'm just so very grateful for that. And it helped me to recognize that, yes, what I was facing was a witch trial, but I got to choose, as we all get to choose, how we wish to respond to that and who we want to be and how we want to hold the light for others. And I think as soon as I began to realize that, I thought, no, I'm not going to meet your stake and your ducking stools in fear. I'm going to alchemize that fear into excitement and use it for what I want to use it for, which was to raise awareness about what was happening to the Palestinian people, to raise awareness that they're trying to silence us from speaking the truth at a time when it's never been more important to do it. So I am just so grateful for that. And the recognition, as I said, that there will be no new earth without the old one dying. But that process of dying is incredibly painful. But as Sheila alluded to, you won't get the new without the death of the old. But let's move and keep visualizing and moving forward and just imagining that, you know, and coming. And it's interesting, Hannah, because I've not read your story about the dragonfly. But it's so interesting because dragonflies kept appearing to me since I first got arrested. Well, as the spring came, and in places they shouldn't be, like in the middle of urban areas. And I was just like, what on earth? And I think I remember Pam Gregory. I don't know if any of you watch anything with Pam Gregory, but she talked about the dragonfly and how the dragonfly obviously is like a nymph or whatever in the bottom of in the darkness in the water, and then suddenly it makes a decision to go up the stalk, and then it becomes the dragonfly. And I thought it's such a perfect symbol for where we're at now and where we're wanting to go. But it isn't going to come without us being willing to speak the truth and being willing to make sacrifices and being willing to risk it all to get what we actually want, and the only world that we can thrive in and life itself can thrive in. So yeah, a lot there, but so my mind is jumping all over the place. I'm just like, my gosh, listening to all of you, it's just been such a journey, but I'm so grateful for it. That's the long and short of it.
No, it's a beautiful, beautiful story, and it's all welcome here, you know. And at the end of the day, you really were so brave, because I speak a lot about the witch hunt, and you know how that has ancestrally and generationally left us with trauma around our voice, around our wombs, around our yonis. It's all connected, you know. And we were burned at the stake for speaking out, and we are the daughters of the witches that they couldn't burn. We are the spirits of the ones that they did, you know. And because we live in a time where we have all these technologies and tools, and we get to, I always found as I went into my awakening journey and my womb healing work, that like I have a duty to speak, because I get to, you know, liberate all those in my lineage who could not share their magic, or who were burned for doing that, and who could not speak the truth. And you know, we all, well, I come anyway from a long line of women who have experienced all sorts of, you know, oppression and genocide, and we've got really frightening and terrifying and strong women in my lineage. But in saying that, we are in a new era now where we think we're safe to speak the truth, but clearly we're not, because these are modern day witch hunts. They never went away. The witch hunt never went away. It's just been repackaged and repurposed and redirected towards others, you know. And the more that we all speak out, and the more that we all do make a stand, the safer we are. So like for you to be able to do what you did, and to really carve that path for us, to still stand while the spears were coming at you, and to still keep moving forward, and to still not shut up, and to still write in this book when so much was at stake, is so fucking inspiring. You know, it's so inspiring, and not many people are willing to stand in the fire like that, and to allow everything to burn down to the ground around them, and then to rise from those ashes of your own cremation and fucking live a life on your terms, you know, unapologetically and fiercely and fearlessly. And I know it hasn't come without its impact on you. And I just wanted you to know that, like, you really have taken one for the team, and you've taken one for the whole world, you know, and you deserve to receive all of the healing now, and all of the freedom to use your voice in whatever way you want to share your story in whatever way you do. And it was you that introduced me to Sophie Scholl in your chapter, that brave German student who set up the Rose movement back in the Nazi era, which was another great period of darkness. And she tried to challenge hateful propaganda by producing and disseminating leaflets appealing to people's humanity. And, you know, she actually was killed by guillotine. But I love how Natalie, in her chapter, you really make this clear invitation, you know, like quoting Sophie's words, where she says, how can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give themselves up individually to a righteous cause? Such a fine sunny day, and I have to go, but what does death matter if through us thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action? And you definitely have stirred me into more you know, action orientated activism, while also weaving in the spiritualism and the grounded kind of work that we need to do in order to maintain our spiritual hygiene and to stay grounded, because we can't you know, we've got to resource ourselves, because this is not, it's not a race, it's a marathon, or whatever they say, you know. And we've got to look after ourselves and look after each other. And yeah, it is a clear invitation for us all to step up and choose our own way to burn in this world, isn't it? Because didn't she say, let us be flaming torches, not flickering candles?
Yeah, she said, she talks about how we're gonna all end up dying anyway. So it's about what path we want to lead. We can either be a flickering candle, or we can be a flaming torch. Choose your own way to burn. And I think that's what I really took to heart. And actually, that's one thing I didn't mention when I was speaking, that I feel like Rebel Ma and, you know, the beginning of the spiritual journey that happened before allowed me to begin to knit together this new spiritual person that was emerging. And I'm still just a baby with the activist. And you're right, you can't do one without the other, because you're not properly resourced. And I think also what writing my piece allowed me to do was to own that. Because before I was scared to say in the, I guess, more activist community I know, or the more campaigning community I know, to go, actually, I'm quite a spiritual person now. I'm doing these other things too. And I think that's what the story allowed me also to be able to do, in the hope that it also helps others to look at that, to open up to that, because we can't change the world without being properly resourced. And it is looking after, because what we're experiencing at the moment in the world is also a spiritual crisis, right? So we have to wake people up to that reality also.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, here. And yeah, really beautiful. Thank you for that, letting us in and sharing your story of hope and of healing and of the feminine rising within you, and leading us all, leading the charge to find our voices and to use them for good. So thank you, my love. If we all take a deep breath into Natalie. Yeah, really, really special and really, really powerful. And I'm just so, so grateful that you all, have found such incredible alchemy through writing your story, and found your people that have, been magnetized toward you by reading your words, and like really feeling activated and initiated into more of who they truly are, which is really what this Rebel Mad journey is all about. So I thought maybe what we could do is, just finish up on, how do you see yourself now as a woman, as a lover, as a leader, as a storyteller, now that you've gone through the rite of passage that is writing your story, publishing your story, liberating yourself from any old stories? Like, who are you now? What is the Rebel Matriarch mean to you? And what is she calling you forward into? Who wants to go? Is Sheila still there?
Yes, I'm here. What a question. So much to answer there, because I think it is a work in progress. We have never arrived, but it's keeping it on a daily basis. We have to keep living into it. Keep living into the new story for us to live, rather than the old story where we survived. I think, obviously, the older you are, when you hit the awakening or the new story, you have more baggage. But I don't think that matters if you're willing to let go of it. Some of us can drop the bags very quickly, others hold on to it. So, and I think it's living that truth every day with your own family. I have one of my sons living with me now, and every day he sees what I do, and he's like, "Mom, I'm so proud of you, the way you keep to your story, keep to your new way of doing things." Because I have, really flipped a switch in myself, like that. I haven't to be this striving, getting, and that you can slow down and be present and still be your true, still get that satisfaction from life. That our satisfaction was, that we were told we get, was through the striving and work hard and all of that story. And it's the spirituality, like Natalie said there. You brought it into your story, Natalie, as to how the activism needed this softness to it. And I brought it into my story of how my divorce, I didn't want this fight and conflict with it. I wanted the compassion. And that was flipping the switch, because everybody sees divorce as this adversarial. And that's why I really was called to this coaching, because to bring that love and open-heartedness and compassion, because that's the true essence of all of us. None of us, and like even the world today in this conflict, we have to commend the Spanish leader who was the first to step up and say something so powerful. And it's the truth, what he said, but will some people see him as weak because he's not fighting, this whole word of fighting. And I saw it a lot even in my work, as I dealt with people in debt, over the last 10 years, and even in divorce, people come in and say, "I want to win." And I'm like, stop, like, let's live rather than win. And even in your story as well, Hannah, you are bringing your abuse story into this, again, turning the script, flipping the script away from victim and revenge. And I think that's where the true matriarchy comes, that in our families, that we as women are so much more complex anyway than men, because of the whole birthing story. And whether we give birth or not, Natalie, doesn't matter. It's that womb, it's that intuition, it's that beautiful essence that we have. And I think that's where we were sold down the river, because we were told that we were reliant on men, whereas we probably know in all our households is that we're raising the vibe, we're raising the bar, we're bringing them with us rather than vice versa. And I think that's the true challenge, is that, it's men's turn now to start the awakening, but we have to be that guiding light for them. So we're flipping that switch where we're leading them, that this is a better way. And I think we can do that through the financial side of it, because women were always financially dependent and the whole system was based on this. Men are the providers and we were the homemakers. And now I was only at a course the other day where I was asking people about their success stories, and there was a group of women, and they actually said, our success, Sheila, is that we've probably been the first generation of women who've embodied being a woman and working. Because women in Ireland, particularly in the 80s, had to give up their job in the civil servants when they got married. And I just thought it was so powerful the way they said it, because there was men in the room as well. And I was like, the men in this room have had to support us doing that. And so that whole change in our society has even brought some bit of a more of a bond. Now, I know economics has changed it again with, now two people having to work rather than choosing to work. But that financial independence is a big bit that we as women have to encourage other women to lean into. Because I see even more and more, even in the divorce story, that, women are very much like, oh, well, I won't take anything, or he's not going to give me anything. And it's like, no, you have sacrificed so much to produce this family, and you are not taking anything you don't deserve. But that whole money story is massive for us as women, that we have to lean into, because I know myself, only for my own financial well-being, in the sense of I was an accountant, I had a profession that has given me a lot of choices that a lot of women didn't have. And like, we have to be honest about that, because it's easy for us to say, oh, you should do this and do that. But a lot of women are trapped and they can't do those things. They haven't got that autonomy and independence. So there's so much leadership we have to do for young women coming through the system as well. Because they're so compromised currently. Now they have the job, but they have the family, but they're worn out. They're stressed to another level that we weren't even at their age. So there's just so much. And I think that's my calling now. At every moment I get, I quote the Rebel Ma and I talk about the truth. And even I think you have to start with your own family. I see the transformation even in my own children, how they communicate with me. Seriously, I just want to really say that about the feminine and masculine. In my home, I thought, I was a strong woman, but I wasn't a strong woman. I was bringing too much masculine, but it wasn't even the right masculine, because I was tainting it. It was no man's land. It was a bit of woman and a bit of man. Whereas this whole Rebel Ma has shown me how to be the feminine, but with boundaries. And that's been powerful for me, because I can take I now realize I can bring both, but in such a more ownership. And I think that's how we lead our families. That's been lost as well in families with men and women.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely given you a beautiful
The voice
yeah,
as
you've
well.
become
Sorry, I just want to say that about the voice. Sorry to interrupt you, because the two other girls said it as well. So many of my friends say this to me. And even when I was with one of them, you did another summit like this last October or December. And one of my friends was doing it, and she literally cried during the voice activation. And afterwards, we had a very big conversation about it. And so many women's voices are we don't have them because we're afraid, and it's through whatever conditioning. So this has really, if it's just activated us to have a better voice, that's powerful.
Yes, thank you, Sheila. Beautiful. Oh, yes, we have to use our voices. And also what you said at the beginning, the story that you're not a writer or, you're an accountant, you can't write, but we are all creative beings. We are all, and you don't need to be like a mother to be a rebel ma, and you don't need to be a fucking like some kind of professional writer to contribute a chapter and write your story, because your story matters no matter how it's written. Like that's part of the journey, is learning how to be a better writer, and you only get better by writing and by speaking and by sharing. So yeah, I love that. Hannah Mama Sky, what would you say now? Have you, like, who are you now as a mother, as a lover leader, as a storyteller? What are you stepping into and owning more of now after becoming the rebel matriarch?
Oh, this feels so, oh, big stretch. Excited for this time. So 10 years ago, 2016, and my first experience in the jungle was when Waking the Goddess, this waking women, came through. But it was actually when I was pregnant with Emrys Sky, my son, that I knew it needed to be Waking the Witches, and the importance of the witches at this time on Earth, and how they were burnt, not just because they're magic and medicine, because their intuition and what they could see and what they were calling out. Because what we're witnessing now, like, the dehumanization and abuse against the Palestinians, it's not a new story. This is an ancient story. The child trafficking, the pedophilia, the everything we're seeing coming out now is not a new story. It's an ancient story. This has been going on our Earth forever. But what's different now is because of these platforms and because of social media and the internet and the way the world's moving, is it's visible to so many more people. And currently, I think we're witnessing a shell shock. I think people are shell shocked by what they're witnessing coming out, because it's so huge. And so for me, I know the power of the Waking the Witches retreat that she's running. I know the activations and the power that has on the women that come, that forces them to wake up and step into their power as women and as witches. And when I see the women that leave compared to how they arrive, I'm just so proud of Waking the Witches, like an entity, like Rebel Ma, that she's just this energy and entity of her own. And I know she's gonna move and shake the world and continue. But for me, when I feel I want to create a sanctuary. I want there to be a more of a hub, of a base for women, mothers and children that are navigating abusive situations. That it came to me in the summer when I released my chapter. So what was really powerful when I released my chapter, on the same day that I sent this chapter to Saoirse, I also sent my statement to court, to standing up to this abuser, to support the woman, the mother that he is now abusing. And there was just such a synchronistic power of, like, at the same time that I'm supporting this sister and releasing this chapter, and like what this means, and that I want to create a sanctuary. She came last summer, and it's the sanctuary of she, and it spells SOS because this is an SOS for women and children. And I see this shield, this SOS shield, and it's a sanctuary where women are going to be, that they're sovereign and they're seen, but they're safe. They're safe. So for me, like, what's really strongly coming through me is this sanctuary of she for women. And also the Holy Yoni Trinity. I mentioned it the other day on our panel, but the Holy Yoni Trinity is a trilogy of poetry books for women in the 3 cycles of their life. When they're maidens, it's my yoni comes first, no pun intended, but absolute pun intended, that we absolutely should go first. My yoni comes first, my yoni gives birth, and my yoni knows her worth. Like, even more strongly this week, I was like, the Yoni Holy Trinity wants to be birthed desperately, urgently needs to be birthed. And that's where I'm putting my energy with these two, the Sanctuary of She and the Holy Yoni Trinity. I'm like, okay, Hannah, come on. This is where
It's already done. It's already done. I love it. Let's do it. 100%. Oh, I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to support you. And so if anyone has any poetry out there in those archetypes, then get in touch because we're going to be calling the women in. Beautiful. And Natalie, what would you say, Rebel Maz unlocked in you and how you see yourself now as a woman, a leader, a storyteller, and a writer, I guess?
What has it unlocked in me? I think possibility, really. Like, I used to write before, and obviously I write speeches for things that I do, but I think it's unlocked the possibility of writing related to me, like telling my personal story rather than just sharing someone else's story, which I also think is really important. So I have actually started my book, kind of coming in stops and starts, reflecting on my year and what that meant to me. So yes, it's about my prosecution trial, but it's also, I'm reflecting back on those kind of old wounds that it poked to me. So going back to telling our story and the healing that comes from it and the power that comes from it. So my stories of, I was in care, I suffered, unfortunately, abuse as well, like so many do. And learning to own it. And I think it's about, again, alchemizing sort of the pains and the wounds into becoming something then, like as the phoenix rises, becoming a torch for others. And I kind of feel like that's what it's guiding me in that direction. And I think also leading within community. So the work that I've come to realize that I'm also here to do, along with speaking the truth about what is happening and, to within our communities, but to others, is also about role modeling what we want and building the community. And so reaching out to one another. So I've been organizing monthly drumming sessions on the 17th of April, which I was going to ask if anybody else wants to replicate similarly around the world. We're doing a march for peace, and it's for life, for dignity, for love, for community near and far. And the point of it, it's not just something that's performative and makes us feel good because it's all fluffy. It's about talking about what does, in order for peace to come, what needs to happen. It's naming, again, it's speaking the truth. It's naming what is preventing us from getting there. And it's the patriarchy, this anti-human capitalist system that destroys it. It's the dominance over, it's imperialism, it's colonialism. So although it's going to be really beautiful and we're going to have some meditation and some drumming and some releasing, we're also going to be naming, and we're going to have some poetry reading. So if 17th of April, the reason why we chose that is because it's a really powerful super new moon. And there's obviously a lot of energy about creation there and visualizing and imagining and sort of stepping forward. And then you've got that darkness, but it's the reminder that the light is beginning to come. So it's about holding that. So I think that's what I recognize for myself, and I think that's what Rebel Ma has helped kind of energize for me a little bit more, give me some clarity of. And it's really interesting because when I think of you, Saoirse, I'm going to tell you this story because you remind me of her. Is probably at the beginning of 23, I had a dream, and in my dream, it's not like Martin Luther King Jr., although I probably have a similar dream, but I had a dream, and in it I saw Bridget being carved onto a piece of wood. And I remember waking up, so I needed to go to the loo, and Carl, my husband, was awake, surprisingly. But I didn't want to go and find a notebook. So I was like, oh, can you remind me to look up Bridget when I get up? Because I had no idea who Bridget was. I went to the loo and then I went back to sleep. I woke up and I actually remembered. And I thought, oh, I need to look up Bridget. And then I thought, Carl bought me some cards like a year before, which I'd only used once before. They're the light worker cards. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to pull a card and then I'm going to look up Bridget. And I kid you not, Bridget came out. And it's about inner strength and about the sacred fire and how she burns away that which we don't need, and lights our way moving forward. And obviously Bridget is, you know, I've got Irish family. My granddad was Irish, which I only found out a few years ago. So I've got all this ancestral sort of connection to islands that I knew further back on the other side I had, but I didn't realize how close. But obviously Bridget is a you know, really powerful goddess, right? In Ireland. So when I think of you, I actually think of Bridget, how you sort of came into my life. So Bridget came into my life in a dream in 23, and she's just kept appearing to me. So in some ways, when I connected with you and I saw you, it reminded me of Bridget. So I kind of feel like I'm sort of leaning into that, into a bit of that sort of archetype, I suppose, and the need to keep, and I think that's what Rebel Ma helps with, to keep stoking the sacred fire in myself. And what I want to do is support others to stoke that sacred fire in themselves, and then move forward, role modeling all the way until we get to the world that we so desperately need.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I love that Bridget reminds me of you, or you, Bridget reminds you of me, because Bridget is the patron saint of our Rebel Ma collective movement. And she is the one that lights the fire of creation within all of our wombs. And yeah, it's so beautiful to call on her when we need her to alchemize, when we need her to burn shit that's no longer serving us. She's the goddess of midwifery, of smith work, of alchemy, and of healing. And she is an incredible goddess to work with. So I love that you feel her through
and
me.
you're the embodiment of her. You are the embodiment of her.
We all are.
Through you.
Absolutely. So I think it was actually maybe you, the direction in my dream, Saoirse, was actually you at the beginning of 23.
I think it's definitely you. I think we all have different goddesses that work through her. Like I feel more Ishtara energy coming through me. I feel like you are Bridget.
Yeah.
Bridget.
Modern day Bridget. I wrote a poem about it. We'll share the recording because it is full power. Oh, beautiful girls. Well, thank you so much. And I think we'll leave it there because I know we've been here for a while now, but maybe we'll just end on the Rebel Ma manifesto that I did write, you know, right at the beginning of this journey of birthing the Rebel Ma collective, which, you know, for anybody wondering and watching, the Rebel Ma kind of stems from the freedom fighting spirit of Irish Mana, of the Irish goddesses, of the women from our lineages, you know, who have always been a stand for truth and who fought for freedom and whose stories matter. And the Rebel Ma now, us, the modern version, we are just the women who we birth a new world through our own becoming. And we're not afraid to go into the darkness and to transmute and alchemize, you know. So she's an emerging archetype for, I call us revolutionary women, and those of us who are healing and feeling and awakening and rising and walking each other home this new and ancient way. So I'm so happy because archetypal feminine energies like Bridget and goddesses and the maiden to the matriarch, they exist within the collective consciousness and within each and every one of us. We can embody the maiden, the mother, the wild and the wise woman in different phases and ways every day, you know. And I just, it gives us so much power to be able to recognize that and to know that we are all of that. You know, we are all of the different phases and faces of the feminine. And the Rebel Ma, she is like, she walks between worlds, you know, past and future, ancient and new, and she leads from her womb. So let's just connect to our wombs here. Just before we leave, let's all bring our hands to our wombs. We've been sitting on our bums for a while, and maybe you want to, you know, move your hips a little bit and just really feel that spiral and those roots connecting down into the earth beneath you. And just taking a deep breath in and opening that jawline, opening that heart space, and just giving yourself an opportunity to just connect to your body. And just really feeling your roots connect from your womb down into the earth, and even just representing you rooted into your ancestral line. you know, which helps you to remember that you are not alone. And as those roots go down and connect to the beautiful womb of the Mother Earth, just breathe in her energy, breathe in her love, breathe in her resilience and her strength, and suck it up through your yoni like you're sucking up that love from a straw. And allow that love, allow that energy to penetrate you, to enter into your womb space and to blow that flame within your womb. Let this energy from the earth be like a blow or a spark to the creative fire of your foremothers that are burning in your womb today. And remember your place as a vessel for stories that have long been silenced. Remember your place as a torchbearer for the wisdom that they were counting on us to forget. And remember that we get to rise as rebels, not against the world, but as a rebel for the world, for life, for birth, for earth, for all that is sacred. And just breathing into your womb space and giving yourself an opportunity to just really feel that. Really feel that truth. Really feel that fire and that flame that is within you and never goes away. And just giving yourself some gratitude and some love and bowing down towards your womb and making a commitment to keep checking in with her, to keep listening to her, to keep walking with her and leading from her, from that place of deep inner knowing, of deep inner guidance, of deep inner love. She is a wellspring of wisdom. And she is a force and a source of the deepest courage. And this mother energy, this mother compassion, this rebel matriarch fucking like fire, that's what the world needs more of. And just really tapping into her and asking her, like, if she had a voice, if your womb had a voice, if the rebel ma had a voice right now, what would she say? What story in you is ready to be witnessed now? What pain is longing to become purpose? And what dream have you maybe silenced or felt like it was too much? And what's that whispering to you? How is she calling you forward even more into the dreams that you have in the heart? If you knew that you couldn't fail, if you knew that you had the capacity to create not only babies, but dreams and visions and missions and movements and anything that you dream of, what would you create? And let that light, let that flame, that creative fire in your womb, let that blaze the trail towards, in the direction of that dream that is whispering to you now. And let that flame burn away anything in the way of you truly believing that it's not only possible, but it's inevitable. And just really, as we sit here, I'm just going to read the Rebel Manifesto before we close off our call, and keep tending to that flame within you. This is the first poem that ever came through with the Rebel Ma movement. And it says, we are the women, the witches, the mothers, the lovers, the teachers, the healers, the feelers, and the leaders of the feminine rising. We are the deep house dancing, yoga loving, tree hugging, adventure booking, festival frolicking kind of women. We emanate an unfuckable feminine frequency. We are the wild and the free. At home in our bodies, nothing to fix, everything to feel. Walking the path of liberation through our own radical awakening, we know there's no revolution without the inner rebellion. We are being what it takes to truly have it all. No more lurking in the shadows, playing small. Creating a new paradigm of both and, not either or. Embodying abundance, consciousness, reciprocity, and love, leaving scarcity and martyrdom at the door. unavailable for victim mentality, stepping into radical self-responsibility, leading with vulnerability and authentic humility. We rebel against the patriarchal system by refusing to play a role in its rigidness. We embrace rest and pleasure as acts of resistance. We let life in by slowing down and opening to receive. We are sacred. We honor our bleed. Our word is our wand, our wounds, our weapons, lit up and liberated. Forgiveness and compassion armor plated. We are the risk takers, the cycle breakers, and the chain makers, healing lifetimes and lineages of shame, suffering, and separation, sitting on our thrones as the queens of creation. No more doing out of obligation. We are the warrior hearts in relentless pursuit of love, freedom, and truth. The gateway to heaven on earth, impregnated with a whole new world our children are trusting in us to birth. We're taking back control of this ship and we're steering it towards peace, harmony, and bliss. Using our hands, voices, and spirits as our healing tools. No more giving away our power, going in the direction we choose. Standing strong as sovereign pillars of love and light, we do what we know is right. We gather, create, pray, and play in the realm of possibility. We are reclaiming the memory of our sacred ancestry, resurrecting the mother from the oppression of patriarchal culture, decolonizing our minds, bodies, souls, births, and earth, leading the return to the time of the feminine where mothers, children, life, and earth comes first. We are multidimensional creatrixes, fully expressed priestesses, fierce protectresses, agents of the goddess. We are divinity personified, unafraid of our superpowers, living our dreams and wildest desires, because you can't burn a woman already on fire. And that is a wrap, baby. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's so beautiful, girls, to gather again, and I look forward to co-creating more magic with you in the future. For anybody watching, please check out the links to all these incredible women and the work that they do, and how you can delve deeper into, you know, what they've got to offer and how you can dance alongside them on this journey. And keep your eye on the Rebel Ma Collective, because we'll be getting up to all sorts of more magic stuff in the future, and I can't wait to support each other in returning to matriarchy now. The feminine has kind of grown up, and now it's not even feminine anymore, it's the matriarchy. That's what we're returning to, not the time of the feminine. We've grown up and we are we're bigger and bolder and better than ever. So let's do this, girls. Thank you so much. Take care.
Hey, everybody.
Bye.